So back before the days of social distancing, a pastor used to gather the children in the front of the church for a little children's homily. And so one Sunday, he had the children gathered together and he started to ask them a series of questions. He said, "Okay, boys and girls, what's gray and furry and climbs up trees?" Nobody raised their hand. He said, "Okay, boys and girls, what's gray and furry and climbs up trees and eats nuts?" Nobody raised their hand. "Okay, boys and girls, what's gray and furry and climbs up trees and eats nuts and has a big bushy tail?" Finally, Johnny raised his hand. The pastor was like, "Yes, Johnny." He's like, "Pastor, I know the answer is supposed to be Jesus, but that sure sounds like a squirrel to me." Sometimes what is most obvious is most difficult to see. And this Sunday would be one of those Sundays because we are so familiar with the Easter story. We're so familiar with the Easter message that sometimes what is most obvious is most difficult to see. And so I just want to focus three places. First, on gravestones. Secondly, on living stones. And lastly, on the Lord's Day. So first, gravestones. You know, it's important for us to try and go back into the mindset of the first apostles and disciples. In our gospel reading today, Mary Magdalene and some of the other women are preparing to go to the tomb, and they're preparing to go see a dead body. They didn't get to do everything that was supposed to be done in preparation for burial, and so they're now going to do what they couldn't do on the Sabbath, which was a Saturday, because the Sabbath was a day where you could not work. You couldn't do any kind of work. And so they're going to the tomb. And they're going to the tomb because something awful has happened. A great leader has died. And we might look at that and we might say, well, okay, great leaders have died before. You know, great leaders throughout the history of humankind have always died. What's different? Well, what's different is they thought this leader was going to be the one. They thought this leader was going to change everything. They thought this leader was going to restore Israel to power. They thought this leader was going to bring justice and prosperity. And all of that has faded. And so they go to anoint a dead body. That's their expectation. Now, some of you today may have come to Mass because someone else said, "I really want you to go to church with me on Easter." And you said, okay, as long as we can get it over with early. Sorry, is that too personal? Anyway. But the great thing is that every Sunday we have a sunrise service at 7:30. You know, a lot of my pastors that are in Protestant churches were saying, you know, "Are you going to do a sunrise service?" I said, "Absolutely. Every single Sunday of the year." Well, why? Well, because every Sunday of the year is a celebration of resurrection. And yet we gather together on Sundays, sometimes not feeling the resurrection. Sometimes we come here because there's a gravestone over our hearts. And we wonder what's going to move that stone? What's going to open up that tomb of our heart so that the resurrection can enter in? And that can be difficult because that gravestone can be a number of things. Sometimes it can be some secret that we're carrying that we haven't shared because, you know, we're really only as sick as our biggest secret. When we have secrets in our lives, that usually is a place of death. That usually is one of those graves that's sealed up with a stone and nothing can get in. Or it could be an addiction that we're struggling with. It could be something that has been plaguing us for years that we just can't seem to kick. Or maybe it's just the fact that our relationships are not where we want them to be. Whatever it is, all of us are here today, and probably a good number of us have a gravestone over our hearts because we're not yet ready to let anything in. And yet the miracle of Easter is that we don't have to move that stone ourselves. And that's what the ladies find when they arrive at the tomb. They come to the tomb expecting it to be sealed with a stone, and they don't know how they're even going to enter in. And so they enter into a tomb where the stone has already been moved for them. And then they see that instead of a dead body, that there's a messenger who says they have a mission. They have an important task. And their task is to move from that place of death to become the living stones of the church. And so the angel sends them on a mission. He already gives them the mission to go and preach what they have seen. So what have they seen? They've seen a tomb where the stone has been moved so that the power of the resurrection can enter in. That can happen for us as well. In fact, that can happen for us every single Sunday, because there's things that happen during the week that tend to push that stone back over the grave of our heart. And so every Sunday we gather here because we know the power of the resurrection. We are called to be living stones. That's what we hear in the psalm. You know, often we don't preach on the psalm, and we probably could, because they are so marvelously beautiful. And the psalm today that Emily sang talked about the wonderful thing that has happened, that this stone rejected by the builders has become the cornerstone, and we are the living stones of that structure. Jesus is the corner. He's the one that gives the dimensions. He's the one that sets the foundation, and then we are put in place around that cornerstone to build this beautiful structure. Not a physical structure, but the structure of the church that continues the ministry of Christ in the world. That's why the sacramental life of the church is so important, because it's through those sacraments of baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, of reconciliation, of marriage, of holy orders, that the actions of Jesus continue. All of those sacraments are the things that Jesus did on this earth. All of those sacraments are the ways that God reaches in to our daily living and touches our hearts so that they can be open. And that's why the Lord's Day is so important. You know, again in the psalm, our refrain was, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad." So what day did God make? You know, if we go back to Genesis, God made every single day, right? He started on the first day of the week, and he created light. And then he continued creating. And every day, you can almost hear God giggling. He's so excited about what he's created. He's looking at it, and he's like, "Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good." And then he created us. And on that day, he didn't just say that's good. He said, "That is very good." He loves us. He's absolutely delighted in us. And he will do anything for us. And that's why he created this day. Because Jesus rose from the dead early in the morning on the first day of the week. And because he rose early in the morning of the first day of the week, today is not Monday. Today is not a work day. Today is not an average day. Today is the Lord's day. That's why in almost every language in the world, this day is called the Lord's Day. Domingo, Domine, this day. It's the day of the Lord because it's the day of the resurrection. And so there is no Sunday without the power of the resurrection. That's why we gather together as the living stones of the Church of Christ to celebrate the Lord's Day. It begins this day and it continues every Sunday because it's something we can't possibly fathom. How could God love us so much that he would even die for us? How could God love us so much that he would even, as we say in the Apostles' Creed, descend into hell to redeem everything that God has created? This is the day the Lord has made, and he made it for us because he knows we need it. And so today I invite you, like Mary Magdalene, like Salome, like the other women, to go to that tomb. Go to the place that's sealed up. Invite the angels and the Lord to open that stone, to move that gravestone away so that we can more fully embrace our vocation to be the living stones of the church, so that we can enter into the vocation to proclaim this message that this day is the day the Lord has made, and we have to rejoice and be glad.